Soon the Antichrist will use a global economic sanctioning system to force individuals to comply with his edicts and thereby worshiping him. Precursors to this system, digital IDs, are being established right now. And we'll analyze these efforts on this edition of the Endtime Show. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries. I do thank you for joining me on this edition of the Endtime Show. Before we get deep off into this mark of the beast situation and everything, and I want to say before we start that something will happen will have to happen in the world to get this stuff pushed across the finish line. I mean, I know that when the Antichrist comes on the scene, that he will usurp authority over an already fully functioning global economic sanctioning system. So it will have been being set up for years now. But the thing is, there has to be something in the mindset of the nations to cause them to finally bow down to the edicts of the world governing body. Well, we know that's going to be World War III. World War III will be the entrance ramp for the Antichrist. World War III, on the heels of that, will set many things in motion. And, of course, we're going to move off into a fully functioning world governing body, which the Antichrist will eventually usurp authority over. Many things are going to happen. So, but we're watching the establishment of this right now, which is very, very, very prophetic. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I want to announce that this coming weekend, my wife and I will be in Kingsport, Tennessee. We'll be at the Christian Life Center, 2401 North John B. Dennis Highway in Kingsport. We'll be with Pastor Jeremy Damesworth. And we'll be there Saturday, June 22nd at 6 p.m. I'll be teaching the topic of the Green Horsemen in World War III. Wow, what a relevant lesson that is right now. You certainly won't want to miss that. Sunday morning, this will be June 23rd at 11 a.m. I'll be doing Breaking Prophecy News and potentially either doing an evangelistic service or doing Q&A. I'll talk to the pastor when we get there. Certainly won't want to miss this weekend. A lot of great information, things that are happening in the world. So certainly join us up in Kingsport, Tennessee, this weekend, my wife and I. Look forward to meeting many of you there. Now, the Bible prophesies of a time coming when every person will be required by the Antichrist and the world governing system to have a number. I did not say every person will take it. I said every person will be required by the Antichrist and the world government to have their own unique identification number. But there will be a lot of people that don't take it. I won't take it. However, without this number, this mark, no one's going to be able to buy or sell anything. However, I trust in God. I know a lot of people, man, just have so much anxiety and fear over this. The thing is, I trust God. And will I maybe have to miss a few meals in the future? Possibly. I don't know if it'll become fully the law of the land here in the United States. Anyway. But under persecution in the future, will we have to go through some stuff? I don't know about here in the United States, Israel, and I know about Judea will, or in Jordan. The Bible says these will escape out of his hand, but there will be, the majority of the earth is going to be under the reign of the Antichrist and have to go through this. In order to get the number, everyone will be forced to worship, or it's going to be like a feudal pledge of allegiance to the Antichrist and his one world governing system. But according to the Bible, anyone who pledges allegiance to the Antichrist takes the mark of the beast, they will be eternally damned. So it's of eternal consequence. It's something we absolutely not could participate in, but I want to show you how they're using global IDs to set the system up right now. So we're going to do a deep dive today into the mark of the beast. Before we do, let me talk to you about Birch Gold. You know, can your savings, think about what you've got put back right now. Can it weather an economic storm? I mean, think about what you put away for the future. Inflation can render cash worthless. Real estate can crash like in 2008. I mean, economies are built on a mountain of debt, can fall like a house of cards. Well, there are very few physical assets that you can invest in that can stand the test of time. Gold has withstood as a valued form of money for millennia, and it's why people are flocking to it right now. The central banks are buying up gold like there's no tomorrow. And that's why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little-known tax loophole, Birch Gold lets you convert a retirement account into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. The best part is it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. To learn more, visit birchgold.com/endtime and claim your free info kit on gold. And I'll pose the question in another way. Can your IRA or 401k weather an economic storm? If not, call the people trusted by many, and that's Birch Gold. Visit birchgold.com/endtime and secure your savings today and help end time. Okay. So, mark of the beast, everybody. Now, again, I know that this brings up a lot of anxiety and things like that because it will be apocalyptic. I mean, let's face it. I'm not making light of it. Again, I don't know how much it will be. I don't believe it will become the law of the land here in the United States. Don't believe it will become that Israel will come under the full reign of the Antichrist or Jordan. I can prove that scripturally. However, most of the world will come under the reign of the Antichrist. The system, the Bible prophesies for the days of the Antichrist, the time just before the second coming of Jesus Christ, could not be set up until right now, till my generation. And though the prophecy is 2,000 years old, its fulfillment has only recently become even possible. The invention of the computer, the birth of the internet, blockchain technology, the use of digital forms of payment have made it possible for a system. In other words, used to you had to either have gold, silver, cash, but now everything is going digital. And I mean everything is going digital. And you've heard of the Internet of Everything, the Internet of Things, where everything would be tied together and everybody, I mean, I could control everything in your house as long as you were tied on, you had it tied to the Wi-Fi or even cars. I think that's one of the big reasons, there are many reasons, but that's one of the big reasons they want to get us all on electronic cars. And I have a friend who has a Tesla. When you get in there, it's one big, all it is a big computer. The dash is a big computer screen. And so I think that they want to get us on that so it's controlling. And, of course, they want to move us on to, you know, they've got the climate change agendas and all that goes along with it. So these use of digital forms of payments, and they've made it possible for a system to be set up whereby every person on earth, or as many as they can get to take it, can be tracked and controlled economically. It's what Revelation 13:16-18 is all about. Well, the Conservative, they published an article, and it says this, I'm quoting, "The world has become interconnected at a level we never before imagined possible." Now, this is not a prophecy magazine. If you understand, if you know the conservative news source on the web. They say states, banking, communications, transport, tech, international development organizations have all embraced digital identification. The current conversation hinges on the need to speed up registrations to ensure that every person on this planet has their own digital ID. Now, again, the conservative, totally secular, have nothing to do with the Bible at all. But they're all talking about everybody on earth be given their own unique identification number. They do not care if you are a billionaire or if you live in a dirt hut somewhere in the southern hemisphere. They don't care. They want you to have a number. Why? It's tracking and control. The only reason you number a person is to control them. I've written articles and different things on I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Israel, Yad Vashem. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many times, honestly. 15 or 20 times probably. And they've always got that, when you come around the first corner, there's a big deal devoted to the numbering of the Jews. They got all these people in the pictures of World War II in the Holocaust where they're all numbered. Hitler numbered the Jews. And they've all got their tattoos. They were numbered. Why did they number them? It was controlling. And that's why you number people. You can number people to control them, especially moving off of a physical means of commerce onto a digital. Cash, I've said it before, is freedom. And digital is controlling. Now, the world government and the religious system, they're all going to be in cahoots together. They're going to be in complete alliance. Union of politics and religion. That's going to soon be in place, and it's going to have the ability to deny your access to participate in the economy based on whether or not you pledge your allegiance. Imagine if they come into your city, wherever that's at, and say, okay, your mayor puts something in the paper or on the internet, however you get they make their announcements, and says, all of our retail businesses are now only going to be digital. No more cash. What would you do? You say, well, Dave, that's never going to happen. There's coming a time in the future where, or if you don't have your digital ID, you're not allowed to shop at Aldi's, Walmart, Kroger's, Albertsons, Tom Thumb. No more. Done. Can't go into any retail store unless you have your mark. What would you do? Most of us go to grocery stores now. Used to, back when I was a kid, my grandparents, they had animals and they raised big giant gardens. And they went to the grocery store for very, very little. This was back when I was a kid 50 years ago. But today, myself included, I rely on a grocery store for everything. But what if I had to be given my own unique identification number? Without that, I couldn't go to the store. Well, the Bible says in the future, most of the world's going to be in that position. The world database. I've written articles years ago about the United Nations being over databases that allowed Syrian refugees, Syrian war refugees that moved down into Jordan, that the United Nations had a database that controlled all of them and allowed them to be able to purchase things they needed to survive in the commissaries down there in them big camps. The United Nations had the ability to control what those people, now the United Nations in the United States had the ability to control Syrian refugees down in Jordan, 6,000 to 7,000 miles away, because of their database. They had all them people, they were using retinal scans. They go into the commerce right in the middle of these big camps, and the commissary put their groceries up on the thing, and they would do a retinal scan, and it would say, yes, you have X amount in your account. No, you overdrawn. You can't buy these groceries. Now, the ability for that to happen is already here. The worldwide database, it's going to provide the system with the information to reject or to accept your access. You say, Dave, this is too sci-fi for me. Listen, this is happening all around you. Unless you're just got your head in the sand, folks. This is everywhere right now. The world is moving more and more towards becoming a cashless society. We started reporting on it, but a lot of people in the news started talking about Australia is going cashless. Well, now there are huge articles in the news today that, well, there's no way Australia could go cashless. That's never going to happen. Cash will be here forever. Well, We'll see about that. I hope it is. We're getting closer every day to being under the control of this prophesied world system. Now, you can see the world international community flexing its muscle right now with the International Criminal Court against Israel, the International Court of Justice, and dictating or trying to dictate to tell Israel what to do in this war with Gaza when Israel's just trying to protect itself. But the international community wants to be able to dictate to Israel and say, you stop the war. You're trying to commit genocide. This is against international law. Let's put out warrants for Netanyahu's arrest. That's what's going on in Israel as we speak. They're trying to control what Israel does. Well, they can really get control. Imagine if we were on a total digital platform, everybody had the same means of commerce, and the international community had the ability to say, Israel, you comply with our edicts or we can cut you off financially. You can't go to a store. No retail stores will accept your numbers. I think about this, folks. This is where the Bible says we're headed. Frontline News published an article. The UN is to inspire. Now think about this. The UN is going to inspire behavior change with digital IDs. Now, 50, 60 years ago, not possible. Not possible. But I was born in 1968. The computer came in what, the late 80s? Now with the invention of the computer and blockchain technology and the internet and everything, and everybody doing mobile payments and, I'm buying things online and da-da-da. Everybody's like, a lot of people are just addicted to that. Very few people use cash anymore. So the UN is saying, hey, and the UN, they'd love to have everybody have their own unique identification number. That's actually their goal, one of them, the Sustainable Development Goals. But you say digital identity to fight climate change, what in the world? Because it's one of their huge propaganda schemes, right? Climate change, human-induced global warming, which leads to climate change, total propaganda. This article by the Frontline News said that the governments need to roll out digital identity programs to fight climate change, and the United Nations Development Program has stated this. So they say digital ID can be used for a tracking system. In an article titled, Why Legal Identity is Crucial to Tracking the Climate Crisis, the UN Development Program officials made the case for why digital identity is a key weapon against climate change. If governments assign digital identities to citizens, they said authorities can track populations more easily in an environmental disaster. You say, well, maybe that might not, maybe the time of a flood or whatever. But the UN Development Program further argued that countries which roll out digital identity programs will have more data about their taxpayers that can then be used in emergency. You say, whoa, hold on. You're tying taxes into it. Well, governments should know the income and health status of every taxpayer, as well as their education level. Well, what's that got to do with it? I thought you were just trying to help me in time of a flood. Well, the article says this would help authorities have more targeted response to citizens during, for example, a weather disaster according to the world body. So they can move some things. This person here may not be vaccinated, so maybe we won't help them in the time of a flood like we will the vaccinated individual. Would that change some people's behavior? You better believe it would. But it goes on to say digital IDs are a way to change behaviors, and digital identity is not only for tracking taxpayer movements and backgrounds, it can also be used to track how much energy taxpayers are consuming. And this is all from the United Nations Development Program, folks. And you think that the world government isn't already being established? Once a government has this data, it can force citizens to change their energy consumption habits, or what the UN Development Program calls inspiring behavioral change. Leveraging digital legal ID data to track energy consumption, inspire behavior change, and enhance sustainability measures can mitigate climate-related disasters. This is their goal. I heard the other day where somebody told me that people put these smart meters in their homes because they thought, well, hey, this is going to be energy efficient, and I can control this from my phone. I can turn the temperature down, to 73 before I get home, and the house will be cool. That all sounds awesome, doesn't it? It's all tied into a computer, and, it's just all, I love this sci-fi type, cool, awesome, wonderful ability to do stuff. The fact of the matter is the people started getting home, and they had set the temperatures for 76 while they left and went to work. Well, when they got home, the temperature was on 78 or 79. They thought, the guy asked his wife, did you turn the air up before you left? No, it was on 76. They both went in there, and it was on 79. Well, they noticed a couple days, 2 or 3 days in a row, they would set it on 76, and they'd get home, and it'd be on 78 or 79. And they thought, well, what in the world's going on? Come to find out, the electric company, because it was tied into the Wi-Fi, they had the ability to, when the electric grid got up to peak and it was getting ready to really be overloaded, the people that had smart meters, they could turn the air up in the temperature up on their thermostats in their homes. Now, this is happening in the United States, folks. And yet, you say, well, they'll never be able to control us. Some people, this kind of stuff isn't even on their radar. They don't realize these types of things. Let's say the powers that be have the ability to do this stuff already. This push for ID, however, it's not a new one. The UN has had a years-long objective to ensure that every person is assigned a digital ID. One of the organization's Sustainable Development Goals is to register all children under 5 with digital legal identities. The digital ID, the center of taxpayers' life. Think about this. According to the UN's vision, the United Nations vision, each individual digital identity will be tied to other aspects of his or her life, creating a kind of a digital cobweb around them. At the center of this would be the ID, which would be accessible to government authorities. And Frontline News learned last year that Gavi, it's a UN-sponsored vaccination body, began pilot testing a program in Ghana that immediately registers the biometric data of every newborn baby. At birth, the infant's fingerprints are scanned, as are the voices of their parents or caregivers. And this data is used to create digital identities that track every baby's vaccinations and allow him or her to receive government benefits. In other words, if the baby's not, if the parent, let's say the parents don't want their baby vaccinated. I know my wife has never been vaccinated, ever. Well, maybe there are some families that don't believe in vaccinating their children. And this Gavi's testing out in Ghana, they track the baby's vaccinations, and if they're not vaccinated, no government benefits. Okay? So you see how these digital IDs can come into play. What if our vaccinations and everything were tracked by our digital identities during COVID? And what if they would have said, no vaccination, no grocery store? I depend on a grocery store 100%. What if they would have said that? Because I didn't get vaccinated. And so you say, well, Dave, man, that's kind of sci-fi type conspiracy theory type stuff. Is it really? I just told you earlier about the United Nations did that to them people down there in the Syrian refugee camps. Now, this is not conspiracy theory. I've documented all of it. And so, Bible says there's coming a time in the future when this is going to happen, and the world governing body will use this to economically sanction people. It'll be a global. That's why the central bank digital currencies that I talk about that so much is because it's just going to be a big noose around everybody's neck. But not everywhere in the world. There will be pockets of resistance against the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to be fighting wars all the way through to the end. I pray and hope that America is part of that resistance. I believe it will be. From Revelation chapter 12. In May of 2023, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for universal welfare, which he said governments should distribute to citizens according to their digital IDs. Those IDs, he explained, should be linked to private bank accounts. I absolutely do not want the government linked to my bank account. I don't ever want the government seizing my bank account or shutting it off like Canada did the truckers up there because they were protesting the vaccines and things. But if we go digital, that'll be able to happen here. Digital IDs linked with bank or mobile money accounts, they say, can improve the delivery of social protection coverage and serve to better reach eligible beneficiaries. They're tying this all in. That's why when the government says, we're going to give you free this and free that and pay off your college tuition and all this, man, when you become dependent upon the government, there are a million strings attached to that, especially if we go digital. The government can stop all those subsidies immediately if you don't comply with their edicts. And the Antichrist is going to use just such a system to economically sanction individuals in the near future.
A voice spoke to me and said, I've got something I want to show you. I was so sure God had talked to me. And I was stunned by what I saw.
A direct fulfillment of this over 2,500-year-old prophecy. The United States will stand with Israel.
Why haven't I ever seen this before?
1/3 of humanity will die. What do these beasts symbolize?
The lion, the bear, the leopard.
The combined beast from Revelation 13 represents the end-time government of the Antichrist. Understanding the end time.
Now streaming on Endtime Plus and available to order at endtime.com/UET. Go to endtime.com/UET or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
So they say that digital IDs that are linked with bank or mobile money accounts can improve the delivery of social protection beneficiaries. Digital technologies may help to reduce leakage or errors and cost in the design of social protection programs. But I'm telling you, it's all about control, control, control. The mark of the beast is all about everybody's going to be given their own unique identification number in their right hand and their forehead, without which they're not going to be able to buy or sell. It's going to be economic sanctioning. That system is being put in place as we speak. It's going to come like this, folks, because God knows the end from the beginning. God's already seen all this stuff be set up and played out. That's how these prophecies are coming to pass in such intricate detail. The digital ID, think of it as the surveillance state. You know, the concept raises concern, right, among opponents of this digital ID, which is known as the successor to vaccine passports. And critics say that digital ID increases the probability of government surveillance and totalitarian overreach. For example, while a government can use a taxpayer's digital ID to deposit money, it could also use it to lock their bank account if they haven't paid their carbon taxes. That's another proposed reform by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. So they're trying to use digital IDs to cram us down this world government hole. It's craziness. But the Bible says it's coming, and we're watching it being put up as we speak. So one of the things that I wanted to do, I'm actually going to go a little deeper into this, but I don't want you to forget our summer deals that we have going. Go to endtime.com/summer, and you can get, actually, they're doing our DVDs, our new DVD set. I need to probably talk to Vince about this one. But our new DVD set for a donation of any amount. And then, of course, you can purchase our book and a lot of different sales and things that are going on there. So go to endtime.com/summer. Check out our summer sale and take advantage of those discounts today. Also, let me mention First Cup Coffee. I know a lot of you have went and supported Endtime by buying this coffee, but now you've found out how good it is, right? I mean, I drink it every morning. And once I run out of K-Cups, they'll give me some more. And so I'm jumping back and forth till I get rid of some of my other coffee. But any chance I get, I'm going in and getting some of this First Cup coffee. It's really good. First Cup, they're a Christian-owned patriot coffee company out of the great state of Texas with 11 different roasts. And you can get many of their roasts by going to firstcup.com and use code ENDTIME to get 10% off. You subscribe, they'll give you an additional 10% off. So go to firstcup.com, use code ENDTIME to get 10% off today. Now, where are we at here? So, Frontline News, they published an article, a cautionary tale. Uganda's surveillance state is built on a biometric ID program. See, the thing is, they roll a lot of this stuff out in some of these underdeveloped nations because they know those people have no means of resistance. What are they going to do? They don't have millions of dollars to go hire all these lawyers and fight the government. So these people, they're so dependent upon the government, they have to do what they're told. That's one of the reasons that I believe, just one of the many, I believe that the United States is going to be one of the ones that bucks up against this world governing system in the end time, other than the fact it's prophesied in the Bible. Because we have the ability to resist. That's one of the differences. We have the Constitution. We have very influential people in America that are resisting central bank digital currencies and a lot of this stuff. We resisted the efforts to turn our driver's license into real ID driver's licenses years ago. We put it off for years and years and years and years. Like almost, 15 years now. And so United States is now they're trying to destroy the United States, right? I mean, that's exactly what many people are trying to do right now. They're trying to destroy the country that we love so much, that we enjoy so many freedoms in. They're trying to destroy it. And an administration that would not protect our borders, when we know we're being invaded by millions of people, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, not so nice people. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they're coming across illegally, number one. It lets you know that their intentions are not the best. Come across legally. But no, it doesn't work like that. And there are people that are willing to face sex trafficking, human trafficking, horrific situations to get across here. But yet, there are people that are trying to destroy America, folks. And So this Frontline News article, the title was A Cautionary Tale. Uganda's surveillance state built on a biometric ID program. Are Western democracies following in Uganda's footsteps? The Ugandan government is using its national biometric ID. Now, I wrote articles on this years ago. Back in, I think I found some of this stuff back in 2013 and wrote articles on it. The Ugandan government is using its national ID program to crack down on political opponents. Uganda first established its National Identification Registration Authority, NIRA, back in 2014. I heard about it in 2013, wrote out, here, look, here's what Uganda's fixing to do. They've done it now. The governmental body began issuing ID cards to citizens to tie their national identities to their fingerprints and their digital footprint. Digital footprint would be, I use my debit card to buy gas on the way home. I stopped at the grocery store, bought this something online, da-da-da. Okay, I'm creating a digital footprint, right? So citizens in Uganda are now required to use digital IDs to vote, to receive medical care. No national ID, no medical care. Now think about that. No national ID, you can't, no bank transactions. No national ID, you can't even purchase mobile SIM cards. The Observer in Kampala years ago, they reported that Ugandans without the newly introduced national ID cards would not be able to qualify for employment. So, in Uganda, no national ID, no job. Doesn't matter how you're paid, what's going on, no job. No national ID, and if they stop and say, papers, please, you better produce that. No job. No job, how much are you going to participate in a society? How are you going to go to a grocery store if you don't have a job? How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to pay your taxes? You can't participate in society with no job, right? Unless you're living off your mom and dad or something. No national ID in Uganda, no education for your children. No national ID in Uganda, no, you're not allowed to travel. No national ID in Uganda, again, no health care. Don't go to the hospital unless you got a national ID. No national ID, no health care, folks. You can't hold a job. The government announced that back then. That was 11 years ago. Approximately 60% of Ugandans are enrolled in this NIRA's ID program, which was originally promoted by the Ugandan president as a way to identify criminals accurately and promptly. Now, it's all the citizens, well, the 60% that are involved in it. Some of them are farmers and different things, living off the land, and they said no. But imagine if one of them breaks their arm and has to go to the hospital. Okay, now it comes down to home, right? NIRA issued IDs are linked to personal data such as facial scans, fingerprints, license plate details, and mobile phone user data. Officials who have access to government databases can use a citizen's ID to track his or her movements, social media accounts, and relatives' places of residence. It's just absolute control, everybody. Now, the UN, of course, has a vision for this. Biometric identity programs are increasing in Western countries, at least partially at the urging of the United Nations. According to the United Nations, it is a human right for every individual to be issued a legal ID. The UN's vision is that each individual's digital identity will be tied to other aspects of his or her life, creating this digital cobweb that they want to spin all around us. At the center of this web would be the ID, which would be accessible to government authorities, even here in the United States. Gavi, which is that UN-sponsored vaccination body, they began piloting a test program in Ghana, immediately registers the biometric data of every newborn. And then at birth, the infant's fingerprints are scanned, as are the voices of their parents or caregivers, and the data is used to create these digital identities. to receive their government benefits. The UN hopes that governments around the world will use biometric ID programs to track citizens for climate change and to inspire their behavior change. So biometric ID systems are already used in airports. And think about surveillance in the U.S. Last year, the Transportation Security Administration, or the wonderful TSA agents that you got to deal with at the airport, they began rolling out facial recognition systems in airports. They have it out here at Dallas-Fort Worth. I do it every time we go through there. Put my driver's license in there, and they take you insert your driver's license into this little slot or passport onto a scanner, and then you look into a camera about the size of a tablet. And passengers are doing this right now. The camera uses an algorithm to analyze the passenger's face and match it against our identification card. Every time me and my wife fly, we do it. But surveillance in the U.S. is mostly carried out by private corporations who then may or may not share the data with state and federal governments. So back in 2022, let me give you an example. A lawsuit revealed that Google has been using sophisticated technology to capture and store faces and voice prints of Google users and non-users, including both adults and children. So one of the ways Google captures this information is through a deal called FaceNet, a face mapping technology which allows Google to identify and group persons together on Google Photos. FaceNet scans and maps the faces of both users and non-users on the app, which has been downloaded over 6 billion times and stores them for an unreasonable amount of time. Another lawsuit revealed that during the pandemic, the Massachusetts Department of Health worked with Google to tap into over 1 million Android smartphones for contact tracing. And this complaint alleged that a tracking app was secretly auto-installed on the phones, though it was not visible alongside all the rest of the apps. The app was named Mass Notify and could only be found by the user when opening settings and using the View All Apps feature. If the user found the app and deleted it, then the DPH simply had it reinstalled. Now, this stuff's going on all around us, folks. What are we saying? That this is all precursors to the mark of the beast system that's coming in the future. So, very important how we address these things in the future.
They that understand what is taking place will instruct many.
Except a man is born again, he can enter or see the kingdom of God.
I don't care what label you've been given or what label you've given yourself. You are essential. You still matter.
This is a journey, and when we get to the other side of that, that's where our prize is. That's where our reward is.
End time is not going anywhere.
Now, I know that there are some out there that are saying, Dave, now come on. That's over in Uganda. That's in China somewhere. Well, actually it's not. Gateway Pundit published an article. The U.S. Department of Commerce has a plan already in place to digitize the identities of all Americans that are receiving public benefits. The U.S. Department of Commerce is spearheading a covert initiative to digitize the identities of Americans that are receiving public benefits, and starting with programs like government health care, veterans benefits, welfare assistance, and under the guise of enhancing efficiency and accessibility, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a sub-agency of the Commerce Department, has already adopted digital identity guidelines. Collaborating with private sector entities, this plan aims to put together, to gather input from various stakeholders to develop a digital ID system. Despite its purported voluntariness, critics warn of potential coercion and loss of privacy, highlighting the lack of transparency and congressional oversight. This move towards digitalization raises concerns about government intrusion and erosion of personal freedoms. You say, man, Dave, you're kind of, feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose here. Here's the deal. One of my main points is that, number one, I trust God through all of it. I mean, if it does become the law of the land here, I don't think it will, but if it ever does, I'm trusting God. I'm going to trust God all the way through because he never failed me yet, right? But the thing is, you say, well, what can we do about it? Well, there are some governors that are pushing back on some of this stuff. We need to support them. Make sure you know about the different bills and things that are being voted on. And we have a presidential election coming up. One of the things, if you look at really the what's going on in this upcoming election, you've got one individual. If it's Joe Biden, that's another thing. Think about this, everybody. I read an article last night in the American Thinker, and they were talking about there's no way that this individual was going to be shocked if Joe Biden was able to remain on the ticket and go into a presidential and be on the ballot because of his cognitively, he's losing it. I mean, I've watched some of the stuff over the weekend that when he was over at the G7 meeting, they were all standing around talking. He just wanders off into a field. And they were like, what in the world is he doing? There's nothing over there. And we're talking about the President of the United States here, folks. I mean, go look at some of the videos that are out there. And so they were saying that one of the guys I was listening to on the radio this morning on the way to work was that Joe Biden is getting ready. I think it's 10 or 11 days away. He's supposed to be participating in a debate with Donald Trump. And the radio announcer, and this was so true, he said the worst thing that could happen for the Democratic Party is that they allow Joe Biden. The two worst things he said that could happen to him right now is that they would allow Joe Biden onto a debate stage with Donald Trump. And the second worst thing that would happen is for them to pull him out of the debate because cognitively he wasn't able to participate. So they're stuck. And they say, you know what, we're only about, what are we, July, August, September, October. So we're just over 4 months, 4.5 months-ish away from the election on November 5. And they were saying if they were thinking about replacing him, they would have to do it almost immediately. And that they don't know how they're going to do that. And they give some possible different scenarios of who they might put in his place. And I mean, there's a big mess going on right now. This election promises to be the most crazy, nutty election that any of us have ever been through. Just watch. We'll see things happen between now and the election that many of us have never seen before. Number one, in my lifetime, I've never seen two former presidents running for another term in the White House. So you know exactly where they stand. But the thing is, that's really my point, is that when we get to the two candidates run for presidential election, one is trying to destroy the United States. Now, they'll say, well, it's not that drastic. He's just got his own agenda and da-da-da. Well, the thing is, he's trying to destroy the United States. If you really understand this stuff, the other one was America First. Now, forget the fact. I don't care who you vote for, whoever you want. I'm just telling you what the facts are. The fact is one was trying to protect us down on the border. The other one is not. I mean, it's really kind of cut and dried. One was anti-abortion, one's pro-abortion. One was anti-supporting all this LGBTQ stuff going on. The other one's pro. One was anti letting all the transgenders participate in our military. The other one is pro that. One was against males going into females' restrooms. One is pro that. I mean, it's just one thing right after another. One was trying to pull us out of world government. One was shoving us into it as fast as they can. And so when you look at this, one is the one that signed the executive order that we would look into a central bank digital currency. One said, if I'm president, there's never going to be a central bank digital currency. Okay? So I'm sitting here watching this whole thing, looking at the craziness that we're going to go through before November 5th, and knowing that we've got to disengage from the world government at some point. Now, you say, man, can you guarantee Donald Trump's going to be the president? No, absolutely, I cannot. And I don't necessarily, I want what God wants. That's what I want. I'm a kingdom-minded individual. I want what God wants. But it looks like, unless something drastic happens, we're going to have Donald Trump and Joe Biden on the ticket. Maybe not. Maybe we would have Donald Trump and somebody else. I don't know. Things can change on a dime, folks. But the thing is, when I look at all of this digital IDs and government surveillance and all this stuff, would you rather have somebody in there who was trying to cram that down your throat, or somebody who was saying, now let's stop all this? What would be wrong with that? I would be all for that, right? Wouldn't you? I don't want the government to have the ability to shut off my bank account. But look at what happened up in, you say, oh, Dave, that would happen maybe in China or someplace. No, try Canada. And what they did up there to those people, it was horrific. The government had the ability to seize, to stop their access, people's access, to cut that off to their bank accounts, business and personal. And so when I look at precursors to the mark of the beast and everything they're doing right now, I'll give you another one real quick. The Liberty Sentinel. There's a guy named Alex Newman who's over the Liberty Sentinel. I'm getting ready to interview him on July 9. He was just on with Glenn Beck. He's coming on our program here on July the 9th. He wrote an article. The United Nations and Bill Gates are behind a digital public infrastructure for global control. He said this, I'm quoting, the United Nations, in collaboration with Bill Gates and various governments, is pushing for the implementation of a digital public infrastructure, DPI, globally within 5 years. The initiative includes central bank digital currencies, digital identification systems, comprehensive data tracking, and more. And it aims to exert extensive control over populations worldwide. The scheme is known as, I think I've talked about this before, but it's known as 50 in 5. And it involves dozens of governments that are volunteering to adopt this digital public infrastructure, DPI, with the expectation that eventually every country would participate. And it's led by the UN Development Program. DPI is framed as a means to accelerate the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, which is it advocates for global wealth redistribution, socialism, and increased government control. And there are critics that argue that DPI will lead to total surveillance and control, with every transaction tracked and monitored. And it involves collaboration between governments, the United Nations, organizations funded by Bill Gates and other elites, and digital IDs and programmable currencies are key components with potential implications for economic control, social credit systems, And despite opposition and measures in some states to resist DPI, its implementation appears to be advancing rapidly. Now, folks, we're talking about World Government 101. It's Bible Prophecy 101. This is Revelation chapter 13. The Revelation 13, 1 through 8 deals with the world government and the Antichrist. Revelation 13, 11 through 15 is devoted to the global religious system and the false prophet. And then, of course, at the end of the chapter, Revelation 13, 15 through 18, is devoted to the global economic sanctioning system used to force compliance and obedience to the one world government and the one world religious system. And so I have, on today's program, I've just shown you a little glimpse into what they're planning. They're starting out pushing it on underprivileged, underdeveloped nations that have no means of resistance. Imagine a government official saying to Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones, no, you don't have a national ID, so you cannot bring Tommy or Susie to the hospital. Now think about that. That's horrible. They've got the means to pay for it. Now think about this. They got the money to pay for it. But no, you have not complied and got your national ID. So Tommy just broke his arm. Sorry. Go get your national ID and come back. Now, you say, Dave, it's not going to get that drastic. Many nations are already there, folks. It's a horrific situation. They want to bring it from Uganda and Ghana to the United States of America. And so the Bible says in the end time, everybody's going to be given their own unique identification number without which you're not going to be able to buy or sell. You're not going to be able to participate in society. And there are people that are trying to push that all around the world, even here in the United States. So we got to pray. We got to believe God. We got to trust God. You got to vote. If you don't vote, then you really can't complain about stuff, right? But we got to vote right. We got to make sure that we vote. We got to trust God. We ask Him to help us. The Bible says God puts kings up and He takes them down. So we're trusting God. We're believing in God. We're kingdom-minded. We're going to make sure we're being faithful to the Lord. And we're going to believe on Him to work on our behalf. I believe He will. But time is now, right? God bless y'all.